Feed on his grace and see good days. Beloved, there is a divine banquet set before you, a table laden with inexhaustible goodness, love, peace, and provision. It is not a banquet earned by toil, by anxiety, or by struggle. It is the banquet of God's grace. Grace is unmerited favor. It is the boundless love of the infinite pouring into your life without measure. When you learn to feed upon his grace, to draw from the fountain of his eternal supply, you begin to see days filled with peace, joy, health, and abundance. For grace is God himself in action, moving through you, around you, and for you. Many live with the consciousness of lack, guilt, or fear, and thus they see their days clouded and heavy. But when you feed on his grace, you awaken to the truth that all things are already provided. You cease struggling and striving. Instead, you rest in the finished work of God. This rest is not inactivity, but divine receptivity. It is the quiet assurance that he who made the stars has also made provision for you. The psalmist declared, "Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good." That tasting is the feeding on grace. And when you taste, when you partake, you see good days, because good days flow out of good thoughts, and good thoughts are nourished by the living word of God's grace. Beloved, the very foundation of your spiritual life must be built upon the recognition that grace is God's gift, not your achievement. So many men and women wander through life weary and heavy laden, believing that the blessings of the Almighty are wages to be earned, trophies to be won, or rewards for their effort. But the truth is that grace flows freely, spontaneously, ceaselessly from the heart of God, without condition, without demand, without limit. It is his nature to give, his essence to bless, his joy to supply. The sunlight does not ask the flower to prove its worth before shining upon it. The rain does not demand payment from the soil before it nourishes the seeds. And the air does not ask you to be perfect before it fills your lungs. In the same way, grace is forever pouring into your life, seeking no merit, but only your recognition and acceptance. When you awaken to this truth, an immense burden rolls off your shoulders. You cease striving to be good enough, holy enough, worthy enough, because you realize that in the eyes of infinite love, you are already accepted, already chosen, already complete. The grace of God is his own presence within you, and you can no more earn it than you can earn the light of the sun. You do not labor for the sunrise. You simply open the curtains and let the light in. You do not struggle for the air. You breathe it in freely. Likewise, the grace of God is always here, and all you must do is open the doors of your heart and allow it to flow through you. This understanding transforms the entire atmosphere of your life. Where before you labored under a sense of guilt, in condemnation, now you rest in assurance. Where once you felt the need to prove yourself, now you simply live in acceptance. The struggle ceases, and in its place comes peace. Imagine a man who has been wandering in a desert, thirsty and faint, searching for water with feverish effort. He digs, he stumbles, he strives, and he despairs. Then suddenly he finds that there is a flowing spring right beside him, bubbling with freshness and purity, waiting only for him to drink. This is the story of every soul. We search and strive, when all along grace is here, nearer than hands and feet, closer than breathing. You must remind yourself daily that God does not bless you because of your achievements, but because of his own nature. The infinite is not a judge keeping score. He is a loving Father whose delight is to give you the kingdom. If you plant the idea of grace deep in your subconscious mind, it will bear fruit in your life. Your subconscious will no longer sabotage your desires with hidden guilt, fear, or a sense of unworthiness. Instead, it will become a fertile field where the seeds of health, abundance, and joy can grow, watered by the eternal stream of God's favor. Many of you may have grown up with the notion that blessings must be earned, that you must toil endlessly for God's approval. But this belief is contrary to spiritual law. The infinite already approves of you because you are his child, his creation, the expression of his own being. A father does not demand that his newborn child earn his love. The child is loved because it is his. Likewise, you are loved simply because you are. Grace is the eternal affirmation of your worthiness in the eyes of God. Now, the practical question arises, how do you live in this consciousness of grace? You do it by constant recognition. Throughout the day, affirm quietly within yourself, I live by God's grace. I move in God's grace. I am surrounded, sustained, and satisfied by grace. As you repeat these affirmations, you impress upon your deeper mind the truth of God's boundless generosity. This creates a new mental atmosphere, a new vibration in your being, and soon your outer life begins to mirror this inner awareness. Opportunities open, relationships heal, and needs are met without strain. Do not fall into the old trap of believing you must earn love, earn success, earn health. Health is the natural state of your body when you allow grace to flow unhindered. Prosperity is the natural state of your affairs when you recognize grace as your unfailing source. Peace is the natural state of your mind when you rest in the knowledge of God's gift. You need not wrestle or struggle for these things, you need only to consent. Consent is the key. To consent to grace is to align your thoughts with the truth of God's abundance. Think of the lilies of the field. They do not toil, they do not spin, yet they are clothed in splendor. The secret of their beauty is not effort but receptivity. They yield themselves to the sunlight, the rain, the soil, and they blossom in their appointed season. So it is with you. When you yield yourself to the grace of God, when you cease striving and begin receiving, your life blossoms in beauty and abundance. When you look back at your past, you may see mistakes, failures, shortcomings, yet grace declares that none of these define you. Grace says, "Behold, I make all things new." Each day is a fresh beginning when you live in grace. You are not bound by yesterday's errors. You are liberated by today's mercy. The past is dissolved in the light of God's love, and the future opens before you as a field of endless possibility. This is why the Apostle Paul could say, "By the grace of God, I am what I am." He knew that his identity, his worth, his very being was not the result of his striving, but the gift of divine favor. And this same truth belongs to you. By grace you are whole. By grace you are forgiven. By grace you are supplied. By grace you are guided. And by grace you are destined to see good days. When you truly absorb this truth, you will notice a shift in your prayers. Instead of pleading and begging, you will begin thanking and receiving. Instead of saying, "Lord, give me," you will say, "Lord, I thank you that it is already given." This change in consciousness opens the floodgates of divine supply, because thanksgiving is the language of grace. The grateful heart is the receiving heart, and the receiving heart is the blessed heart. So I urge you today to cease striving for that which has already been provided. Stop struggling to earn what cannot be earned. Rest instead in the eternal flow of God's unearned, unmerited, unchanging grace. Affirm it daily, feed upon it constantly, meditate upon it deeply, and you will find your life transformed. The weary striving will cease. The burden will be lifted, and you will move with ease and joy through the days of your life. For grace is God's gift, and when you accept the gift, you step into the good days He has already prepared for you. When you learn to feed upon the grace of God, you discover that the first fruit which blossoms in your life is peace of mind. The mind, when left to its own devices, can become a restless sea, tossing and turning with waves of worry, fear, and doubt. It races into tomorrow with anxiety, or it dwells in yesterday with regret, and thus robs today of its harmony. But when you meditate upon the truth of divine grace, when you drink deeply from the fountain of God's inexhaustible love, that storm begins to subside, the waves grow still, and you enter into the quiet harbor of peace. Grace is the balm that soothes the agitated mind. It is the oil that calms the troubled waters of your thoughts. You may have noticed that much of human suffering does not come from circumstances themselves, but from the way the mind interprets those circumstances. A man who has millions may still live in torment, fearing he will lose his wealth, while another with little may live serenely, because he trusts in the unseen riches of God's supply. Peace of mind, therefore, is not a product of outer conditions, but of inner awareness. And what is the awareness that produces peace? It is the awareness of grace. It is the realization that God's love surrounds you, sustains you, and upholds you in every moment, regardless of appearance. Think for a moment of the air you breathe. You do not struggle to earn it. You do not wonder if there will be enough for you. You do not fear that it will cease to flow. You breathe it in naturally. And as you do, you are sustained. The grace of God is like that. It is always here, invisible yet powerful, flowing without measure. And when you acknowledge it, when you breathe it into your consciousness, you are sustained in peace. Anxiety begins to melt, because you recognize that you are not left to fend for yourself in a hostile world. You are upheld by infinite love. Every morning as you rise, take time to dwell upon the truth of grace. Say quietly within yourself, God's grace goes before me today. His favor surrounds me as a shield. His love governs my every thought, word, and deed. Let these words sink deep into your subconscious mind. They will begin to shape your inner atmosphere. And that inner atmosphere is what determines your experience of the day. A peaceful mind does not create chaos. A peaceful mind creates harmony. A mind that rests in grace does not attract confusion, but order. Not turmoil, but calm. Imagine walking into a room filled with sunlight. The shadows vanish instantly. Not because you fought them, not because you struggled with them, but because light naturally dispels darkness. In the same way, when you fill your mind with the light of God's grace, the shadows of fear and worry are dispelled. You do not have to wrestle with them endlessly. They dissolve in the presence of truth. This is the secret of peace of mind. It is not manufactured by human effort. It is received by divine illumination. Many souls today are weary because they seek peace in possessions, in achievements, in recognition from others. But all such peace is fleeting, for it depends upon conditions that change. True peace comes only from what is unchanging, and that is the eternal grace of God. No matter what happens in the world of appearances, whether markets rise or fall, whether friends come or go, whether the body feels strong or weak, grace abides, and when you anchor your mind in grace, you are unshaken by the ebb and flow of external events. You may walk through the valley of shadows, but within you is the assurance that goodness and mercy follow you all the days of your life. Some may say, but how can I know peace when troubles surround me? The answer lies not in the removal of troubles, but in the change of consciousness. When you see through the eyes of grace, troubles lose their power to disturb you. You realize that every difficulty is but a passing cloud, while grace is the eternal sky. You realize that every challenge is an opportunity for God's sufficiency to be revealed. You realize that your security is not in circumstances, but in the one who holds all circumstances in his hand. And as this realization grows, peace takes root in your heart. There is a beautiful passage in Scripture which says, Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. What does it mean to have your mind stayed on God? It means to keep your attention fixed upon his grace, his goodness, his presence. It means to look beyond appearances and to rest in the truth that underneath are the everlasting arms. And as you do this, perfect peace becomes your portion. Not a fragile peace that comes and goes, but a deep, abiding calm that nothing external can shake. Let me illustrate with a simple example. Picture a great ocean liner moving steadily across the sea. The waves may toss, the winds may blow. Yet deep within the ship, there is a quiet engine room where power flows unceasingly, guiding the vessel to its destination. So it is with you. The storms of life may rage about you, but when you feed on grace, you retreat inward to that sacred chamber of your soul where the peace of God flows steadily, unbroken, unshaken, carrying you forward to your good. The surface may be rough, but within you the current of peace is unceasing. Each time worry arises, treat it as a call to return to grace. Do not condemn yourself for feeling anxious. Simply remember that worry is a signal that you have momentarily forgotten the truth. Gently bring your mind back with affirmations such as, God's grace is sufficient for me. His peace rules in my heart now. I am upheld by his everlasting arms. Speak these truths not with tension, but with quiet assurance. And as you do, your subconscious mind will absorb them, replacing the old patterns of fear with new patterns of faith. As the weeks pass, you will find that peace of mind becomes not a rare visitor, but a constant companion. You will awaken with a sense of calm, move through the day with quiet confidence, and retire at night with restfulness in your soul. This is the result of feeding upon grace. And remember, a peaceful mind is not only a blessing to yourself, it is a blessing to others. When your heart is calm, you carry that atmosphere into your home, your workplace, your community. You become a channel of harmony, a beacon of serenity, a living testimony of God's presence. Therefore I say to you, feed daily on his grace, and let that grace dissolve every fear, every anxiety, every restless thought. Trust in the unfailing love of the infinite, and peace will be your natural state. And as you dwell in peace, you will discover that health improves, relationships flourish, and your affairs prosper. For peace of mind is the fertile soil in which all good grows. Grace produces peace, and peace produces good days. Grace, when rightly understood and embraced, does not merely comfort the mind, it nourishes and restores the very soul. The soul, beloved, is the seat of your innermost life, the deep spring of thought, imagination, and desire. Just as the body requires daily food and drink to sustain its strength, so the soul requires its nourishment. And the true food of the soul is not the fleeting pleasures of the world, not the applause of men, nor the glittering prizes of ambition. The true nourishment of the soul is the grace of God. When you take this grace into your consciousness, when you meditate upon it and let it saturate your being, your soul becomes strong, radiant, confident, and filled with vitality. Grace restores what was lost, renews what was broken, and heals what was wounded. Many people live as though their souls were starved. They have filled their days with toil and their minds with fear, and they wonder why they feel so weary, so empty, so burdened. The soul cries out for rest, for renewal, for strength, yet they feed it only with worry, with resentment, with endless striving. Just as a body deprived of nourishment becomes frail, so a soul deprived of grace becomes restless, anxious, and troubled. But when you turn within and consciously feed upon the infinite supply of God's goodness, the transformation begins. The soul that was once faint becomes strong, the spirit that was once crushed becomes uplifted, the heart that was once heavy becomes light. You may ask, how does grace restore the soul? It does so by awakening within you the truth of who you are and what you are in the sight of God. Grace whispers to the innermost depths of your being, you are not broken, you are whole. You are not condemned, you are forgiven. You are not forsaken, you are beloved. These truths, when received and believed, heal the inner wounds that life may have inflicted. They wash away the bitterness of failure, the sting of rejection, the poison of guilt, and they replace them with sweetness, joy, and freedom. Think of a tree that has been battered by storms, its branches torn, its leaves scattered, its bark scarred. Yet when the rains fall and the sun shines again, life begins to stir in its roots. Ash flows once more, and green shoots appear. Slowly, steadily, the tree is restored. So it is with your soul. Life may have dealt its blows, circumstances may have left their scars, but when you open yourself to the grace of God, new life begins to flow. The hidden springs of strength are stirred. The joy of the Spirit rises up, and your soul is renewed like the eagle's. Consider the words of the psalmist. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me beside the still waters. This is the work of grace. It leads you to the still waters of inner peace, where you drink deeply and are refreshed. It restores your soul from the weariness of the journey, from the struggles of daily life, from the conflicts that seek to drain your spirit. The restoring power of grace is not something you earn. It is a gift you receive by turning within, by opening your heart to the infinite, by affirming the truth that God's love is your portion now and forever. You may say, but I have made mistakes, I have failed, I have strayed. Yet grace declares that your mistakes do not define you, that your failures are not final, and that your wandering is not without return. Grace restores by lifting you out of the past and setting your feet upon a new path. It takes what was broken and makes it whole. It takes what was wasted and multiplies it anew. It takes what was lost and restores it with increase. The prodigal son returned with nothing, yet he was received with abundance. So it is with you. No matter how far you feel you have wandered, the moment you turn to grace, the robe of love is placed upon your shoulders, the ring of acceptance upon your hand, and the feast of joy is set before you. Grace also renews the soul by enlarging its vision. A soul weakened by fear sees only obstacles, only limitations, only impossibilities. But a soul nourished by grace sees new horizons, new opportunities, new possibilities. Grace lifts the eyes of your soul to behold the abundance of life, the richness of God's creation, the beauty of His plan for you. It takes away the narrowness of despair and replaces it with the breadth of hope. When you feed on grace, your soul becomes expansive, creative, alive with imagination, eager to embrace the good that is at hand. Furthermore, grace brings confidence to the soul. Confidence does not come from boasting in yourself, but from resting in the sufficiency of God. When you know that grace is your constant companion, you do not walk timidly, but boldly. You do not shrink back in fear, but step forward in faith. Your soul is no longer paralyzed by doubt, because it knows that it is sustained by the Almighty. This confidence is quiet, not arrogant. It is steady, not boastful. It is the assurance that you are upheld by a power greater than yourself, a power that never fails. There are many who carry inner wounds that no human hand can heal, wounds of disappointment, betrayal, loss. These wounds often linger in the subconscious, coloring thoughts, shaping emotions, distorting perceptions. But grace reaches into those hidden places. It touches the deepest hurts with the healing balm of divine love. It speaks words of comfort. Where there was sorrow, words of strength. Where there was weakness, words of life. Where there was despair. Slowly but surely the soul that was weighed down is lifted. The heart that was broken is mended, and the spirit that was crushed is revived. This is the miracle of grace. It restores and renews not by demand, but by gift, not by pressure, but by love. Each day, therefore, you must make it your practice to feed upon grace. In the quiet of the morning, before the world presses upon you, turn within and affirm, God's grace restores my soul. His love renews my spirit. His peace fills my mind. Let these words sink into your consciousness. Repeat them until they become part of your inner fabric. As you do, you will feel a deep calm rising within, a strength that is not your own, but the strength of the infinite flowing through you. As you walk through the day, remind yourself often of this truth. When weariness tries to settle upon you, say, grace restores me now. When fear seeks to grip you, declare, grace renews me now. When discouragement whispers its lies, affirm, grace lifts me now. By these simple practices, you continually nourish your soul, and like a well-watered garden, it flourishes. Beloved, the soul is the garden of your life. If it is barren, your days are barren. If it is weary, your days are weary. But if it is nourished by grace, your days are filled with life, joy, and abundance. Feed upon His grace, and you will find that your soul is not only restored, but radiant, shining with the beauty of God's presence. Then you will walk through life, not as one defeated, but as one renewed, not as one broken, but as one made whole, not as one burdened, but as one uplifted. For grace restores and renews the soul, and a soul restored is a soul that sees only good days. When you live in the consciousness of grace, you discover a marvelous transformation. Lack is transmuted into abundance. The world around you may cry scarcity, men may warn of shortages. Your senses may testify to insufficiency. Yet when the truth of God's infinite supply dawns upon your soul, your whole experience begins to change. Grace is the revelation that the source of all things dwells within you, closer than your own heartbeat, nearer than your very breath. To live in this realization is to tap the inexhaustible fountain of God's provision, a fountain that never runs dry. Consider for a moment how many live imprisoned by the thought of lack. They believe they never have enough, never enough money, never enough time, never enough strength, never enough opportunities. Their entire consciousness is colored by this sense of deficiency, and as a man thinks in his heart, so does he experience. Lack is not a condition of the outer world. It is a condition of the inner world. When the mind dwells on insufficiency, the outer life mirrors it with circumstances of want. But when the mind feeds upon the truth of grace, it awakens to abundance, and abundance begins to flow in every area of life. Look at nature. The trees do not worry about whether they will have enough sunlight. The rivers do not fear they will run out of water. The earth does not strive to produce fruit. It simply yields, and the harvest comes in due season. The universe is a picture of ceaseless supply. Why then should you, a child of the infinite, believe yourself condemned to lack? The same Spirit that clothes the lilies and feeds the birds is at work in you and for you. Grace is the assurance that your needs are already met in the mind of God, and when you align your thoughts with this truth, the evidence will appear in your affairs. It is not necessary to struggle or strive to bring this abundance about. Striving is born of the belief that supply is limited and must be fought for. But grace teaches that supply is infinite, and flows naturally to those who open themselves to it. When you release the old thought of lack and replace it with the awareness of grace, you stop blocking the river of provision. Imagine a great stream flowing beside your house, but you have built a dam of doubt, fear, and negativity across its path. The water is there, ready to refresh and nourish, but it cannot reach you until the obstruction is removed. So it is with abundance. The supply is already present, but your doubts and anxieties may have blocked its flow. By feeding on grace, you dissolve the dam, and a river of provision pours into your life. This is why Jesus said, "Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you." What is the kingdom of God? It is the reign of divine truth in your mind and heart. It is the realization that God's grace is sufficient, that his supply is inexhaustible, that his love provides for you unfailingly. When you seek this inner realization, the outer things naturally follow. You are no longer chasing after supply. Supply comes to you, drawn by the magnetic power of your consciousness. There are those who say, "But I work hard, yet I still struggle." The truth is that hard work without the consciousness of grace can lead only to weariness. Work itself is not the source of supply. Supply comes from the infinite, and work is but a channel through which it may flow. When you shift your belief from "my job is my source" to "God is my source," you liberate yourself from the fear of loss, the anxiety of change, and the bondage of toil. Jobs may change, markets may fluctuate, but the source remains constant. And when you know this source is grace, your mind rests, your heart trusts, and abundance flows in surprising and delightful ways. Abundance is not limited to money. It is the fullness of life in every dimension: health in the body, peace in the mind, love in relationships, creativity in endeavors. All these are the fruits of grace, and all are yours to claim. If you have believed in lack, begin today to reverse that belief. Affirm, "I live in the abundance of God's grace. Supply is flowing to me now. I am open and receptive to the goodness of the infinite." Repeat these words until they sink into your subconscious. As they take root, your outer life will begin to change. You may find new opportunities arising, unexpected resources appearing, doors opening where once there were walls. These are not coincidences. They are the natural outworking of a mind aligned with grace. Remember that abundance does not mean accumulation for its own sake. True abundance is the freedom to live joyfully, to give generously, to bless others as you have been blessed. A hoarding spirit is still a spirit of lack, for it fears there will not be enough tomorrow. But a soul that feeds on grace knows that tomorrow will bring fresh supply, as surely as the sun will rise. Thus it is free to share, to circulate, to give, knowing that in giving it receives. For grace is not stagnant. It is ever flowing, ever circulating, ever renewing. You may wonder how to apply this truth in times of financial strain or material want. Begin by refusing to magnify the appearance of lack. Do not keep rehearsing it in your mind or speaking of it with your lips. Every time you say, "I don't have enough," you reinforce the belief of scarcity. Instead, affirm the truth of abundance, even in the face of want. Say, "God's supply is here now. I open myself to receive it. I trust his grace to provide." Hold this thought firmly, not with strain, but with quiet confidence. In due time, the outer picture will adjust to the inner truth. I recall a man who once came to me burdened by debt. He was overwhelmed with fear, certain that ruin awaited him. I advised him to stop feeding the fear and to start feeding his soul with affirmations of grace. Each morning and evening he repeated, "God is my instant and everlasting supply. I live in his abundance. I give thanks for divine provision now." Within months, unexpected opportunities arose. Debts were paid, and his affairs were set in order. The change began not in the outer world, but in the inner, by shifting his consciousness from lack to grace. Beloved, you are not destined for want. You are destined for abundance. It is your divine inheritance. As a child of the infinite, the universe itself proclaims it. For everywhere you look, there is overflow, stars beyond number, grains of sand beyond counting, blossoms beyond measure. Do not insult the giver of all good by believing yourself condemned to scarcity. Lift up your eyes and see the richness of creation, and know that the same richness flows toward you through the channel of grace. Feed upon this truth daily. Let it saturate your mind and sink into your heart. As you do, you will feel a shift, a lightness, a confidence, a quiet joy. You will know even before the evidence appears that abundance is yours, and in that knowing, doors will open, supply will flow, and your life will be filled to overflowing. For when you live in the consciousness of grace, lack is transformed into abundance, and you walk each day in the fullness of God's provision. Grace, beloved, is the great liberator of the human soul. It is the divine proclamation that you are free, free from condemnation, free from guilt, free from the heavy burdens of the past. How many men and women walk through life carrying chains that only exist in their mind? They remember mistakes they made years ago, they replay failures in their imagination, and they live under the constant shadow of self-accusation. Yet all the while, the infinite whispers, "You are forgiven, you are cleansed, you are loved with an everlasting love." This is the voice of grace. When you learn to listen to it, when you feed upon it, you step into a new dimension of liberty, where condemnation has no power. You see, the subconscious mind holds on to impressions long after the events are past. A harsh word spoken in anger years ago, a wrong choice made in ignorance, a betrayal of your own better judgment, these may linger like ghosts haunting your inner life, producing feelings of unworthiness. And because you believe yourself unworthy, you unconsciously block the flow of good into your life. But grace comes to dissolve those impressions. It washes the slate of the subconscious clean. It whispers a new identity into the depths of your being. You are a child of God, and there is now no condemnation in you. Think of a judge who has already dismissed a case, declaring the accused innocent, yet the accused continues to return to court, each day waiting for a punishment that will never come. That is how many people live. They revisit the court of their mind daily, condemning themselves for old errors, when, in truth, the judge of all has already declared them free. Grace is that eternal verdict of acquittal. The case is closed, the debt is paid, the burden is lifted. To continue condemning yourself is to deny the power of grace. Now, this does not mean that grace excuses wrongdoing or makes light of mistakes. Rather, grace transforms them. It takes the crooked paths and makes them straight. It takes the wrong turns and leads them back to the right way. Grace is God's ability to bring good even out of what seemed evil, to bring blessing even out of failure. Joseph said to his brothers, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." That is the song of grace. It takes the broken pieces of your life and creates a masterpiece of redemption. When you truly grasp this, a deep peace settles upon you. No longer do you live under the constant lash of self-reproach. No longer do you carry the weight of regret. Instead, you walk with head lifted, heart lightened, spirit renewed. You know that every day is a new day, every moment a new beginning. Because grace makes all things new. You begin to view your past not as a chain that binds you, but as a testimony of the goodness of God who delivered you. The very places where you once stumbled become stepping stones to lift you higher, for grace redeems even the past. Many fear that if they release condemnation, they will lose the motivation to live rightly. They believe that guilt is necessary to keep them on the straight path. But the truth is the opposite. Condemnation weakens the soul. It saps strength, destroys confidence, and breeds despair. Grace, on the other hand, empowers the soul. It fills you with joy, gratitude, and the desire to walk in the light. A man who feels condemned hides from God. A man who knows grace runs toward him. Condemnation drives you into darkness. Grace draws you into light. Thus, freedom from condemnation is not a license to sin, but the very power to live in righteousness. Let us take an example. A young woman once came to me overwhelmed with guilt. She had made choices in her youth, which she regretted bitterly, and she believed that God could never forgive her. This sense of condemnation weighed on her mind, and her life was filled with failure after failure. I told her to stop rehearsing her past mistakes, and to start affirming the truth of grace. Each day she was to declare, "I am free from condemnation. I am forgiven and beloved of God. His grace flows through me now. Slowly but surely, her inner atmosphere changed. The heavy burden lifted. Her face brightened. Opportunities opened. And her whole life took on new vitality. Why? Because she had fed on grace instead of condemnation. Grace also frees you from the condemnation of others. How often do people live as prisoners of public opinion, fearful of criticism, weighed down by the judgments of those around them? But when you know the grace of God, you no longer need to bow to the verdict of men. Their approval or disapproval does not define you. You stand secure in the love of the infinite, who calls you his own. The Apostle Paul said, "It is a very small thing that I should be judged by you or by any human court. I do not even judge myself." He understood the liberating power of grace. He knew that the only verdict that matters is God's verdict, and that verdict is no condemnation. This liberation also extends to your relationships. When you know that you are free from condemnation, you cease condemning others. You realize that if grace covers you, it covers them as well. You begin to see people not through the eyes of judgment, but through the eyes of mercy. This transforms homes, friendships, communities. For how much conflict is born out of mutual condemnation. But when grace rules the heart, forgiveness flows easily, love abounds, and harmony is restored. The subconscious mind, once programmed with guilt, may try to drag you back into old feelings of unworthiness. Do not yield to it. Each time it raises the voice of accusation, answer with the voice of truth. There is now no condemnation in me, for I live in the grace of God. Repeat this until your subconscious accepts it, and soon the old patterns will dissolve. Your inner life will be filled with freedom, your outer life with blessing. Beloved, it is time to drop the heavy load of guilt and walk in the liberty of grace. You are not condemned, you are not rejected, you are not disqualified. You are accepted, beloved, redeemed. This is not because of your works, but because of his infinite love. Do not argue with grace, simply accept it. Let it fill your heart, renew your mind, and restore your soul. As you do, you will find that life takes on a new radiance. Fear gives way to confidence, sorrow to joy, defeat to victory. You will walk in freedom, and your days will be filled with light. Therefore, feed upon his grace daily. When old memories rise, meet them with grace. When accusations come, answer with grace. When you feel the weight of condemnation, remind yourself of the eternal truth. I am free in Christ. His grace has made me whole. Hold this firmly, and you will discover the joy of living without condemnation, the joy of walking in liberty, the joy of seeing good days filled with peace, abundance, and love. Grace, dear friend, is not only the balm that heals your past, it is also the guiding light that illuminates your way. The infinite never leaves you in confusion or uncertainty. The Spirit of God within you knows the end from the beginning, and when you feed upon grace, you allow that wisdom to direct your steps. Many people live their days with anxiety about decisions. They say, what if I choose the wrong path? What if I make a mistake? What if I miss my opportunity? But when you rest in grace, you realize that God himself is your shepherd, and the shepherd does not abandon his sheep. He leads them step by step to green pastures and still waters. He guides them into right paths, and so grace becomes your invisible compass, always pointing toward harmony, abundance, and peace. Consider the subconscious mind, which is impressionable and obedient. Whatever you impress upon it, it accepts as truth and brings into manifestation. If you fill it with thoughts of fear, doubt, and confusion, it will reflect those conditions in your outer world. But if you saturate it with the consciousness of grace, if you affirm daily that God's wisdom is guiding you now, that his love goes before you, preparing the way, your subconscious will receive this seed and bring forth right actions, right encounters, and right outcomes. This is the divine law at work, and it is infallible. Grace does not guide you through thunderbolts or dramatic signs in the sky. Rather, it works through the gentle impressions of intuition, through a sense of inner peace, through sudden clarity in a moment of decision. It whispers rather than shouts. That is why stillness is so important. In the quiet of prayer and meditation, you tune your inner ear to the voice of grace. There, in the silence, you know which way to go. The world may clamor with 1,000 opinions, but in your heart the voice of grace says, "This is the way, walk in it." Let me give you an example. A businessman once came to me, perplexed about an opportunity. Should he invest in a new venture or not? His mind was restless, going back and forth between fear of failure and hope of success. I instructed him to still his mind and feed upon the grace of God. Each morning and evening he affirmed, "The grace of God guides me in all my ways. Divine wisdom directs me, and I make right decisions at the right time." After a week, he reported that the inner turmoil ceased, and in its place was a calm assurance. He took the step that grace impressed upon his heart, and it led to great success. The outer result was not produced by frantic reasoning, but by resting in grace. Grace also protects you from harmful paths. There are times when a door closes and you feel disappointed. But later you realize that grace was guiding you away from a trap, a snare, or a path of sorrow. What looked like a setback was in truth a safeguard. The infinite sees beyond what you can see. You may see only the next step, but he beholds the entire journey. When you trust his grace, you can let go of the need to control every outcome. You rest in the assurance that what is for you will come, and what is not will pass away. This surrender to divine guidance brings serenity to your soul. Imagine a river flowing steadily to the sea. If you place your little boat upon it and surrender to the current, it will carry you safely onward. But if you resist, if you struggle and row against the current, you exhaust yourself in vain. Grace is that current of divine wisdom and love. To feed upon it is to relax into its flow, to let it carry you where you are meant to be. This does not mean passivity. It means alignment. It means moving with the rhythm of God's wisdom instead of against it. Now you may ask, how do I know if I am being guided by grace or by my own restless desires? The answer is simple. Grace is always accompanied by peace. When you are in harmony with divine wisdom, there is a deep calm within, even if the outer circumstances are not yet clear. Confusion belongs to the ego. Peace belongs to grace. Therefore, when faced with a choice, enter the silence and ask, does this path bring me peace? If the answer is yes, proceed with confidence. If the answer is unrest, wait until grace illumines your way. The subconscious mind responds quickly to imagery. Picture yourself walking on a path, bathed in light, with the radiance of God's love illuminating every step. See yourself being led gently, securely, confidently. As you hold this image, your subconscious accepts it and aligns your outer steps with the inner vision. In this way, grace becomes a living force, shaping your journey. Feeding upon grace also means trusting in divine timing. Sometimes you are guided to wait, to pause, to let things unfold. The human mind is impatient. It wants immediate answers and quick results. But grace knows when the soil is ready, when the season is right, when the door will open. If you rush ahead of grace, you may stumble. If you lag behind, you may miss the blessing. But if you walk in step with grace, you arrive at the right place at the right time. This is why the scriptures say he makes all things beautiful in his time. Beloved, you do not need to live in fear of making wrong choices. You are not alone in this journey. The infinite is within you as wisdom, as intuition, as guiding grace. Feed upon it daily. Affirm, God's grace directs me now. Divine wisdom orders my steps. I walk in the light, and I make right decisions. Let these words sink deep into your subconscious, and watch as your life becomes a tapestry of harmony, each thread woven with precision by the hand of grace. Even if you feel you have made wrong turns in the past, grace is able to redirect you. It wastes nothing. It takes even detours and weaves them back into the right path. What you thought was wasted time becomes preparation. What you thought was failure becomes training. Grace uses all things and turns them for your good. You cannot miss your destiny when you trust in God's guidance, for grace is patient, persistent, and unfailing. Therefore, walk in quiet confidence. Do not rush. Do not fear. Do not waver. Grace is guiding you now. Your path is illumined. Your steps are ordered. Your journey is secure. Feed upon this truth until it saturates your subconscious, until every thought, word, and action flows from it. Then you will discover the joy of a guided life, the joy of knowing that you are exactly where you need to be, doing exactly what you need to do, at exactly the right time. This is the power of grace. And when you live in it, you truly see good days filled with peace, harmony, and divine fulfillment. When trials come, as they surely do in the journey of life, many tremble and shrink back. They say, "Why must I face this difficulty? Why has this burden come upon me?" Yet the man or woman who feeds upon grace sees trials in a different light. Grace is not absent in hardship. Rather, it is most present there. Grace is the hidden strength that rises within you when outer circumstances seem overwhelming. It is the still, small voice that whispers, "Fear not, I am with you," when the storm rages around you. Without grace, the trial crushes. With grace, the trial strengthens. Without grace, the burden bends you low. With grace, it lifts you higher. The scripture says, "My grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness." This means that in your weakest hour, when you feel you cannot go on, grace becomes your sufficiency, your invisible might, your unfailing power. The subconscious mind often magnifies trials, making them appear larger than they are. A small problem looms like a giant. A passing difficulty feels like a permanent condition. Fear and worry feed these images until they become mountains in your imagination. But when you feed on grace, you shift your inner vision. You affirm that God's infinite power is greater than any problem, that His love upholds you, that His wisdom guides you. In that moment, the mountain shrinks, the storm calms, the burden lightens. Grace reorients your subconscious away from fear and toward faith, away from despair and toward hope. Think of the oak tree in a storm. The winds beat against it, the rains fall upon it, yet it stands firm because its roots are deep. Grace is the root of your soul. When it goes deep into the soil of divine truth, you can face any storm without breaking. Indeed, the storm strengthens you, for it compels the roots to go deeper still. So it is with trials. When you face them with grace, you discover inner reserves of strength you did not know you possessed. Consider a man who loses his employment. Without grace, he falls into despair, thinking, "This is the end. I am ruined." But with grace, he says, "This is but a door closing so that a greater one may open. God's grace is sufficient for me. A better opportunity is being prepared for me now." With this attitude, his subconscious aligns with expectancy instead of defeat. Soon circumstances shift, and he finds a position far better than the one he lost. The trial became a blessing because grace turned his focus from fear to faith. When you affirm daily, "God's grace strengthens me in every trial," you impress upon your subconscious the truth that you are never alone. Even when outer help seems absent, an inner presence sustains you. This presence speaks through intuition, giving you ideas and solutions. It speaks through peace, calming your heart when reason fails. It speaks through courage, enabling you to rise when you feel you cannot. And as you respond to this inner presence, you find the trial no longer breaks you. It builds you. Grace also changes your perspective on suffering. Without grace, you see trials as punishment. With grace, you see them as preparation. Without grace, you ask, "Why me?" With grace, you ask, "What lesson, what blessing, what strength is being forged within me?" In this way, grace transforms the trial into a teacher, a refiner, a sculptor, shaping your soul. Just as gold is purified in fire, so your character is refined in difficulty, but only when you meet it with grace. Let me tell you of a woman who faced a serious illness. At first she was terrified, imagining the worst, but as she fed upon grace, repeating daily, "God's grace is my strength and help," a shift took place within her. Fear gave way to faith, despair to confidence. She began to see her illness not as the end, but as a passage into deeper trust. Each treatment, each challenge became an opportunity to affirm grace. Over time, her body responded. Her spirit grew radiant, and she emerged stronger than before. The illness which once threatened to destroy her became the very ground on which grace displayed its power. Beloved, the trial is not meant to break you. It is meant to awaken you. When Paul cried out in weakness, the Lord did not remove the thorn immediately, but He gave the greater gift as grace. And that grace turned Paul's weakness into strength, his burden into a testimony, his trial into triumph. So it is with you. The grace you feed upon in times of difficulty becomes your shield. your fortress, your inexhaustible reservoir of strength. Never say, I cannot bear this. Say instead, by the grace of God, I can and will overcome. Never say, this trial will destroy me. Say instead, this trial will reveal the power of God in me. What you declare with feeling impresses your subconscious, and what the subconscious accepts, it brings to pass. If you affirm weakness, weakness grows. If you affirm grace, strength rises. This is the law of mind, and it is unfailing. Trials also have a way of stripping away false supports. When you rely too much on externals, on wealth, on position, on human approval, a trial may come that removes these props. It feels painful, but in truth, it directs you back to the only sure foundation, God's grace. There you discover that your true security is not in things, but in Him. And once this truth is established in your heart, no trial can ever shake you again. Therefore, do not dread trials. See them as opportunities to prove the sufficiency of grace. Each difficulty is a canvas on which God paints His strength, each burden a stage on which His grace performs its miracle. Feed upon this truth daily. When the storm rises, declare, the grace of God is my sufficiency now. Let this be your inner song. And watch as peace fills your mind, courage fills your heart, and strength fills your body. You will look back one day and see that what you thought would ruin you actually refined you, that what you thought was loss was gain, that what you thought was defeat was victory in disguise. For grace was with you all along, turning the darkness into light, the sorrow into joy, the trial into triumph. Hold fast, therefore, to this truth. Grace strengthens you in every trial, and with grace you cannot fail. Grace, beloved, is the healing presence of God, flowing through every cell of your body and every thought of your mind. It is the divine energy that renews, restores, and revitalizes. When you feed upon grace, you are not merely drawing upon human strength or relying on medical science alone. You are opening yourself to the inexhaustible life of the infinite. Grace is health to your flesh and peace to your soul. It is the quiet assurance that healing is not something you must earn, but something already provided for you in the eternal storehouse of God's goodness. Many live in constant fear of disease, repeating silently, I am weak, I am unwell, I may never recover. Such thoughts impress the subconscious mind, and the body responds accordingly, producing fatigue, tin and illness. But when you affirm daily, God's grace is healing me now, you impress the subconscious with a new pattern of health and harmony. The body, which is the servant of the mind, begins to reorganize itself in accordance with this new belief. The cells respond to the command of truth. The organs obey the law of life, and vitality returns. This is not imagination or superstition. It is the divine law of mind and spirit manifesting in the physical realm. You see, your body is always listening to your inner dialogue. Every thought is a message, every belief a command. If you continually feed your inner self with fear, your body will echo that fear. If you continually feed it with grace, your body will radiate health. Grace says to you, you are whole, for the life of God flows through you. When you accept this word deeply, your subconscious takes hold of it, and your body expresses it. This is why the psalmist declared, He sent His word and healed them. The word is grace, and it heals by entering the depths of consciousness and transforming belief. Let me give you an example. A man once came to me suffering from a chronic ailment. He had tried various treatments, but his fear and discouragement kept the condition alive. I instructed him to begin each day by affirming with deep conviction, the grace of God flows through me as radiant health. Every cell of my body is filled with life, strength, and harmony. I told him to imagine this grace as a golden light bathing every part of his being, restoring balance and vitality. In time, his subconscious accepted this image, and his health improved remarkably. The outer condition shifted when the inner belief was changed by feeding upon grace. Grace heals not only the body, but also the mind. How many people suffer from hidden wounds, resentments, anxieties, regrets that torment them far more than any physical ailment? Yet grace comes as a soothing balm, dissolving the knots of tension and pouring peace into the heart. When you say, God's grace fills me with serenity now, you are inviting the infinite peace to flow through your subconscious, quieting every storm. The nervous system responds, the heart rate steadies, the mind grows clear. You begin to experience mental health, which is as vital as physical well-being. Sometimes healing is delayed not because grace is absent, but because the channel is blocked. The most common blockages are fear, guilt, and unforgiveness. Fear says, I may never recover. Guilt says, I do not deserve to be well. Unforgiveness says, I hold on to bitterness. All these states constrict the flow of life. Grace, however, removes these blockages. It declares you are loved, you are forgiven, you are free. When you feed upon this truth, the channels open and healing flows unhindered. A woman once told me she could not recover from an illness no doctor could explain. In prayer, it was revealed to her that she carried deep resentment toward a family member. This bitterness was poisoning her subconscious, and through it, her body. When she chose to forgive and affirm, God's grace flows through me and through them, her body began to recover. Grace healed both her heart and her health, for the two are inseparable. Beloved, remember that healing does not always mean the removal of every symptom at once. Sometimes grace brings gradual restoration, strengthening you step by step. Sometimes it brings peace in the midst of pain, showing you that even in limitation, you are more than conqueror. Sometimes it brings the courage to release fear and live joyfully regardless of outer conditions. In all cases, grace is present, healing, renewing, lifting. To feed upon it is to remain open, receptive, and expectant of good. You can make grace a daily practice. Each morning, before you rise, affirm silently, the grace of God is healing me now. His life flows through me. His peace fills me. His love renews me. As you say these words, picture your body bathed in divine light, your mind resting in perfect calm. Carry this image throughout your day, and you will find your health improving, your energy increasing, your heart rejoicing. For the subconscious mind thrives upon repetition and imagery, and what you continually impress upon it must come to pass. Even medical science acknowledges the power of belief in healing. Studies show that hopeful, peaceful patients recover more quickly than fearful, anxious ones. This is but a scientific confirmation of the timeless truth. As within, so without. Grace is the ultimate source of hope and peace. And when you feed upon it, you activate the greatest healing power of all, the life of God within you. Think not that healing is only for some and not for you. The infinite does not play favorites. His grace is universal, impartial, overflowing. It is like the sun that shines on all, like the rain that lulls on the just and the unjust. If others have experienced healing through grace, so may you. Simply open your heart, release fear, and receive. Healing is not a matter of begging God to do something. It is the awakening to what He has already done. Therefore, if you are in pain, do not say, I am sick and helpless. Say instead, the grace of God is working in me now. His life restores me, His love strengthens me, His wisdom orders my healing. Repeat it until it becomes the song of your soul. Do not measure progress only by outer symptoms. Measure it by the peace that grows within, the joy that arises, the faith that deepens. These are the signs that grace is active, and in due season, the outer manifestation will follow. Beloved, grace is your healer. It is closer than your breath, nearer than your heartbeat, more powerful than any condition. Feed upon it daily, and you will discover health for your body, serenity for your mind, and renewal for your soul. Then you will look back and say, surely goodness and mercy have followed me all the days of my life, for you will have tasted the healing power of grace and seen good days overflowing with divine vitality. Grace, dear friend, multiplies joy. It is the divine fountain that overflows within you, creating a heart so filled with gladness that it cannot help but radiate outward. When you truly feed upon grace, gratitude wells up like a spring, joy rises like the morning sun, and your life becomes a hymn of thanksgiving. Many people seek joy in possessions, in applause, in fleeting pleasures. Yet such joy fades quickly, leaving emptiness behind. But the joy that springs from grace is not dependent upon circumstance. It is born of the eternal presence of God within you, and because He never changes, this joy endures. Gratitude is a natural response to grace. When you realize that life itself is a gift, that every breath you take, every opportunity you enjoy, every blessing you experience, flows from the infinite storehouse of God's love, You cannot help but give thanks. And this thanksgiving is not a mere formality, but a profound recognition of the source of all good. The subconscious mind, when nourished with thoughts of gratitude, expands its capacity to receive even more, like a fertile field that produces an abundant harvest when tended with care. The grateful mind produces blessings in overflowing measure. The law of life is simple. What you dwell upon grows. If you dwell upon complaints, lack, and dissatisfaction, your subconscious reproduces these conditions in your outer life. But if you dwell upon gratitude, joy, and grace, your subconscious brings forth abundance, harmony, and good fortune. Feeding on grace is therefore feeding on joy, for grace reveals that life is not a burden, but a blessing, not a punishment, but a gift, not a random struggle, but a divine unfolding. Imagine beginning your day not with sighs of worry, but with songs of thanksgiving. Instead of saying, "I dread what lies ahead," you declare, "The grace of God goes before me today, preparing the way with peace and abundance. I give thanks for this new day, for the opportunities it holds, for the life flowing within me." Such affirmations impress the subconscious with expectancy and gratitude. And as surely as a magnet draws iron, this mental state draws good experiences into your life. Consider a woman who lived in constant discontent. She focused always on what she lacked, on what others had that she did not, on how unfair life seemed. Her face was etched with worry. Her health declined, and her relationships grew strained. When she learned to feed upon grace, she began a new practice. Each night before sleep, she listed 10 things for which she was grateful. At first it seemed mechanical, but soon her heart softened. She began to notice small blessings she had overlooked. The kindness of a friend, the beauty of a flower, the gift of rest. Gratitude grew within her, and with it came joy. Her health improved, her relationships blossomed, and her whole atmosphere changed. The world outside did not transform until she changed within, and she changed by feeding upon grace with thanksgiving. Gratitude opens the floodgates of supply. When you thank God for what you have, you signal to your subconscious that abundance is your reality. This belief multiplies itself, producing more to be thankful for. Jesus himself demonstrated this when he gave thanks before multiplying the loaves and fishes. The miracle began with gratitude. So it is in your life. When you give thanks for even the smallest blessing, you prepare the way for larger blessings to manifest. Grace also teaches you to rejoice not only in prosperity, but also in challenges. This may seem strange, yet it is the secret of saints and sages. They rejoice not because of the trial itself, but because grace is present in it, working all things for good. When you can say in your heart, "Even here, God's grace abounds," you rise above circumstances. You are no longer a victim of conditions, but a master of them. For you see beyond the outer to the inner reality of divine goodness. Joy, when multiplied by grace, becomes contagious. It radiates through your words, your smile, your very presence. Others feel uplifted simply by being near you. Your workplace becomes brighter, your home more peaceful, your friendships deeper. This is because joy is a spiritual vibration, and when your subconscious is filled with it, it sends out waves that influence all around you. In this way, feeding upon grace not only blesses you, but becomes a blessing to everyone you encounter. Even in solitude, joy abides. You do not need crowds, entertainment, or constant activity to feel alive. The soul that feeds upon grace discovers inner contentment, a quiet joy that fills the heart like a steady flame. This joy does not waver when storms come, for it is rooted not in externals, but in the eternal presence of God. It is the joy of knowing you are loved, guided, and sustained. It is the joy of realizing that nothing can separate you from the grace of the infinite. Each day you can deepen this joy by practicing simple affirmations of gratitude. Say within yourself, "I rejoice in the grace of God that fills my life. I give thanks for health, for peace, for love, for abundance. My heart overflows with gratitude and joy multiplies in me." Repeat this morning and evening, and let the feeling of joy accompany the words. The subconscious accepts not only the statement, but the emotion, and soon your outer life reflects the inner song. A man once said to me, "I will be happy when I have more money, when I am promoted, when I find the right companion. But grace teaches us the opposite. Joy is not a destination, but the atmosphere in which blessings grow. If you wait to rejoice until conditions are perfect, you will wait forever. If you rejoice now, even in small beginnings, conditions will align to reflect your inner state. Joy precedes fulfillment. It does not follow it. Beloved, feed upon grace until gratitude becomes your habit, joy your atmosphere, thanksgiving your constant prayer. Do not measure your life by what you lack, but by the inexhaustible grace that surrounds you. Even now, there are blessings you cannot count, gifts you cannot measure, mercies you cannot repay. Acknowledge them, celebrate them, and you will discover that joy multiplies beyond your imagination. The days that follow will then be good days, not because circumstances are always easy, but because your heart is always rejoicing. You will find beauty where others see barrenness, hope where others see despair, abundance where others see lack. For joy is not in the outer world, but in the inner vision. And when that vision is fed upon grace, it produces a life radiant with light. Therefore, let joy be your daily bread, and gratitude your constant song. Feed upon grace, and you will find yourself overflowing with thanksgiving, radiant with joy, and surrounded by blessings beyond measure. This is the promise of grace, and this is the secret of seeing truly good days. Beloved, the truth I bring to you is simple yet eternal. When you feed upon the inexhaustible grace of God, you step into a flow of abundance that cannot be hindered by appearances, obstacles, or limitations. The grace of God is not rationed. It is not measured by human standards, nor is it confined to certain hours of the day. It is infinite, boundless, and ever-flowing, like a mighty river that never ceases its course. This river of grace flows through you now, waiting only for your recognition, your acceptance, and your trust. When you attune yourself to this divine current, you find that abundance follows naturally, prosperity manifests effortlessly, and your days are filled with good things beyond measure. Too many people struggle and strive in their own strength, believing that their good must come by endless toil, anxious scheming, or human approval. They lean on limited resources, forgetting the source of all supply. Yet the scripture reminds us that God is able to make all grace abound toward you, that you, always having all sufficiency in all things, may abound to every good work. Notice the words all grace, all sufficiency, all things. This is the language of infinity, not limitation. When you rely on the grace of God, you move beyond the realm of human effort alone and enter into the dimension of divine flow, where doors open without struggle, where ideas come with clarity, where supply arrives in perfect timing, and where every need is met in abundance. The subconscious mind responds powerfully to the image you impress upon it. If you impress limitation, fear, and lack, it will faithfully reproduce those conditions in your life. But when you impress it with the reality of grace, with the vision of abundance, with the conviction that divine supply is infinite, then the subconscious aligns itself with this truth and channels it into visible form. Feeding upon grace means constantly reminding yourself that God is your unfailing source, that He provides in ways you cannot imagine, and that His supply is endless. When this belief becomes fixed in your subconscious, prosperity is inevitable. Consider the story of a man who lived in constant fear of not having enough. Though he worked tirelessly, he always felt anxious about the future. His words reflected his beliefs. I never know if I will make ends meet. Times are hard. There is never enough. These affirmations of lack became ingrained in his subconscious, and so lack perpetuated itself in his experience. When he learned to feed upon grace, he began a new practice. Each morning he declared, God's grace is my sufficiency. Infinite supply flows to me now. I am abundantly blessed and richly provided for. At first it seemed merely words, but as he wrote them with feeling, the conviction grew. Soon opportunities began to open, unexpected resources arrived, and his whole atmosphere shifted. He moved from fear to faith, from lack to abundance, simply by changing the seed he planted in his subconscious. Abundance is not only material, it is also peace of mind, harmony in relationships, vitality in health, and fulfillment in purpose. When you feed upon grace, you are not merely seeking more possessions, but a richer, fuller, more abundant life in every dimension. Prosperity without peace is poverty. Wealth without health is emptiness. But grace provides wholeness. It supplies not only bread for the table, but joy for the soul, not only money in the bank, but harmony in the heart. When you attune yourself to grace, you experience abundance in all its forms, because grace is the fullness of God expressed through you. Do not limit the channels through which good can come to you. Many people say, unless I get a raise, unless this business prospers, unless this person helps me, I cannot succeed. But grace is not bound to one channel. The infinite has countless ways to provide for you. If one door closes, grace opens another. If one opportunity fades, grace reveals something better. Your task is not to dictate how supply must arrive, but to trust the source and remain receptive. Say often, the grace of God provides for me richly, freely, endlessly. I do not limit the channels, for God is the source of my abundance. Such affirmations open the subconscious to unexpected avenues of blessing. You may say, Dr. Murphy, I have tried and failed. I have prayed, yet nothing changed. Beloved, grace is not absent because results seem delayed. Sometimes the soil of your subconscious needs to be tilled, the old weeds of fear uprooted, the hardened ground of doubt softened, before the seed of grace can bear fruit. Do not give up in discouragement. Persist in affirming the truth. Persist in feeding upon grace, and in due season the harvest will come. Remember, the farmer does not plant today and reap tomorrow. He trusts the process, knowing that growth is taking place unseen. So it is with grace, your faith and affirmations are never wasted. The moment you align with grace, unseen forces begin to move, and in perfect timing, the visible manifestation appears. A life of abundance is not merely about receiving, but also about giving. Grace flows most freely where there is generosity. As you share your blessings, whether time, resources, kindness, or encouragement, you become a channel of grace to others, and what you give returns multiplied. The law of life is circulation. A river that flows freely remains fresh. A river that is dammed becomes stagnant. Likewise, when you allow grace to flow through you to bless others, you remain in the current of abundance, and more is added unto you. Say within yourself, I am a channel of God's grace. I give freely, and I receive richly. In this way, your abundance is multiplied. Imagine yourself each morning entering the river of grace. See it flowing around you and through you, bright, sparkling, infinite. Affirm, I feed upon the grace of God today. I drink deeply of his abundance. My life overflows with blessings. Goodness and mercy follow me all the days of my life. Let this image fill your mind until you feel it to be true. Your subconscious will accept it, and your outer life will begin to reflect the inner vision. You will notice opportunities appearing, ideas flowing, needs being met, and your days unfolding with ease and joy. Abundance is your divine right, for you are a child of the infinite, and the infinite withholds nothing from its offspring. Do not live as a beggar when you are heir to the kingdom. Do not think in terms of scarcity when you are surrounded by infinite supply. Feed upon grace until the consciousness of abundance becomes natural to you, until you no longer fear lack, until you walk daily with the assurance that the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Then truly you will see good days, days of provision, peace, joy, and fulfillment, all flowing from the inexhaustible fountain of divine grace. Beloved, let this be your conviction, that you are never separated from grace, never cut off from supply, never lacking in the eyes of the infinite. The abundance of God is flowing now, here in this moment, in this very breath. Accept it, believe it, and live it. Feed upon his grace, and you will indeed see good days, good in their fullness, good in their richness, good in their divine perfection.